Outlaw Gunslinger buried his partner, only to hear him singing in the jailhouse. He buried his brother with split knuckles and no prayers, only to hear him singing through jailhouse bars 3 days later, in a voice no corpse should own. The shovel snapped halfway through. Silas Roan didn't curse. Didn't scream. Just stared at the broken handle like it had betrayed him too. The desert wind answered with a low, mocking whistle, kicking dust into his eyes, his mouth, the raw trench at his feet. His brother lay wrapped in a threadbare blanket stolen from a burned-out homestead, face pale as chalk beneath the grime, lips parted like he was still trying to say something. Something Silas refused to hear. He dropped the useless wood. Dug with his hands. Fingernails tore. Knuckles split on buried stone. Blood dripped into the sand, dark and thick, vanishing almost before it hit. He didn't stop. Couldn't. Every scoop of earth was a confession. Every grunt, a prayer he didn't believe in. The sun, white-hot and pitiless, beat down on his back like the hand of a god who'd turned away. Sweat stung his eyes. His throat burned. His canteen lay empty beside the grave, tossed there hours ago when the last drop turned to dust on his tongue. He remembered the last words Elias had spoken, not to him, but to the sky, just before the bullet took him. Should have stayed in Abilene, brother. Not an accusation. A sigh. A surrender. And Silas, standing 10 paces off with smoke curling from his Colt, had said nothing. Just holstered the gun. Walked away. Now, he lowered Elias into the hole. No coffin. No preacher. No weeping widow or orphan child. Just Silas, the wind, and the buzzards already circling high above, patient as tax collectors. He covered the face first, couldn't bear those open eyes anymore. Then the chest. The legs. Finally, the boots, scuffed, dusty, one heel worn crooked from years of kicking stubborn stirrups. Silas paused. Took them off. Held them in his trembling hands. Smelled the leather, the sweat, the ghost of horsehide and campfire smoke. He tucked them under his arm. Left the body barefoot in the dirt. He filled the grave slow. Each shovelful heavier than the last. When the mound was done, he jammed a rusted spur into the center, Elias's spur, the one with the chipped star on the heel. No name. No dates. Just metal biting earth. A marker for a man the world forgot before he was even cold. Silas turned his back on it. He didn't look back as he walked to his horse. Didn't glance over his shoulder as he mounted. The gelding snorted, sensing the weight in the saddle, the silence thicker than gun smoke. They rode west, toward nothing. Toward whiskey. Toward forgetting. 3 days later, hooves clattered onto the warped boards of Redemption Falls Main Street. Dust coated Silas's coat. His eyes were hollow. His soul, emptier. He tied the horse outside the Last Chance Saloon, the only building in town with glass still in its windows. He pushed through the batwing doors, the smell of stale beer and sweat hitting him like a fist. He didn't make it 3 steps. From down the street, past the dry goods store, past the shuttered barber shop, past the gallows with its lonely news swaying in the breeze, came a sound that froze his blood. Singing. Cracked. Off-key. Hauntingly sweet. It drifted through the iron-barred window of the town jail. A lullaby. Hush now, little rider, don't you cry. His mother's song. The one she hummed while stitching their shirts by firelight. The one Elias used to croon when Silas woke screaming from nightmares. The one Silas himself had muttered, low and broken, as he shoveled dirt onto his brother's face. He stumbled out of the saloon, boots thudding on sun-baked wood. People turned. A woman dropped her basket. A boy froze mid-run. Silas didn't see them. Didn't hear the murmurs. He walked like a man dragged by chains toward the jailhouse, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He stopped 10 feet from the door. The singing stopped too. Silence. Then, soft as a sigh through cracked lips, the voice came again. The coyotes sing you lullabies. Silas's hand flew to his gun. Not to draw it. To steady himself. His fingers brushed cold steel. His breath came in ragged gasps. He took one step. Then another. Stopped at the barred window. Peered inside. Darkness. Then, movement. A shape shifted in the corner. Pale face lifted. Lips parted. And sang. Silas staggered back like he'd been shot. It was him. Elias. Alive. Eyes sunken. Cheeks hollow. But alive. And singing. Silas's knees buckled. He caught himself on the windowsill, splinters biting his palm. Inside, the singing didn't stop. Didn't falter. Just kept winding through the bars, soft and sorrowful, curling around Silas like smoke. And the stars will keep you safe tonight. Silas turned and ran. Not toward his horse. Not toward the desert. Toward the saloon. Toward whiskey. Toward anything that could drown the sound of a dead man singing his mother's song. Behind him, the voice didn't chase. It just waited. He drank to forget the voice, but the whole town knew his brother was alive, and that Silas had buried the wrong man. The whiskey burned like a branding iron down his throat. Silas didn't care. He slammed the glass down, rattling the bar, and growled, again. The bartender, a grizzled man with one ear and no questions, poured without a word. The saloon had gone quiet the moment Silas staggered in. Not the respectful silence of mourning. The coiled hush of fear. Of secrets. Men hunched over cards didn't look up. Women at the back table pulled their shawls tighter. Even the piano player stopped mid-tune, fingers hovering over yellowed keys. Silas didn't notice. Or didn't care. He drank like a man trying to fill a hole no liquor could reach. The song still echoed in his skull, that cracked, off-key lullaby, curling around his thoughts like smoke through a cracked door. He'd buried Elias. He'd felt the weight of the body. Seen the stillness in the chest. Smelled the death on his skin. He'd dug the grave with his own bleeding hands. He knew death. He'd delivered it too many times to mistake it. Yet, that voice. That face in the shadows. He slammed his fist on the bar. Who is that? He snarled, voice raw. In the jail. Who the hell is singing? No one answered. The bartender slid him another drink. And a folded scrap of paper. Silas stared at it. Didn't touch it. The room held its breath. Finally, he snatched it up. Unfolded it with trembling fingers. He ain't dead. And he ain't forgiven you. Silas crushed the note in his fist. His vision blurred. He threw coins onto the bar, too many, and lurched toward the door. The batwing swung shut behind him with a hollow clap. Outside, the wind had picked up. It howled down the empty street, kicking dust devils around his boots, moaning through the eaves of the abandoned livery. It sounded like laughter. Like mourning. Like the desert itself was mocking him. He walked toward the jail. Not fast. Not slow. Like a man walking to his own hanging. The iron-barred window loomed ahead, dark and silent now. No singing. No movement. Just the creak of the hinges in the wind. Silas stopped a few feet away. Listened. Nothing but the sigh of the breeze and the distant cry of a coyote. He stepped closer. Pressed his ear to the sun-warmed wood of the door. Silence. Then, a breath. Soft. Steady. And then, barely audible, a whisper through the keyhole. "Brother." Silas jerked back like he'd touched a live wire. It wasn't angry. Wasn't pleading. Just, broken. Familiar. The same tone Elias used when Silas came home late, covered in someone else's blood. The same quiet disappointment when Silas chose the bottle over the barn, the gun over the plow. Silas's hand flew to his chest, not his heart. Lower. To the inner pocket of his duster. His fingers closed around cold metal. He pulled it out. Elias's revolver. Ivory grip. Nickel-plated barrel. Engraved with their mother's initials, MR, near the trigger guard. The gun Elias swore he'd never part with. The gun Silas had tucked into the blanket before lowering him into the grave. "So you ain't defenseless on the other side," he'd muttered. But now it was here. In his hand. Which meant the body in the grave wasn't Elias. A stranger. A decoy. A corpse wearing his brother's coat, his boots, his face in the dim light of a dying campfire. Silas's knees nearly gave out. He leaned against the jailhouse wall, the rough wood scraping his back. His mind raced, the stagecoach ambush near Coyote Pass. The gunfire. The smoke. Elias shouting, "Ride, Silas, ride." Then the figure falling. Silas turning back just long enough to see the coat, Elias's coat, crumpled in the dust. He'd ridden back under fire. Dragged the body away. Never checked the face. Never looked closer. Just, buried him. Because he couldn't bear to see his brother's eyes empty. Because he was a coward. The wind picked up again, howling louder now, rattling the jailhouse shutters. Somewhere down the street, a church bell tolled, slow, mournful, out of place in a town that hadn't seen a preacher in 5 years. A shadow moved in the sheriff's office window across the way. Watching. Silas shoved the revolver back into his coat. His fingers brushed something else, a folded map, brittle and stained. He pulled it out. Unfolded it with shaking hands. A crude drawing of the canyon west of town. A red X near Dead Man's Creek. And beneath it, scrawled in Elias's unmistakable hand, "You left me once. Don't do it again." Silas looked up at the jailhouse window. Darkness. But he felt eyes on him. Waiting. Judging. The wind died suddenly. The street fell silent. Even the coyotes hushed. In that stillness, Silas heard something else. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Behind him. He didn't turn. Didn't reach for his gun. Just closed his eyes and whispered, "What did you see, Elias?" "After I rode away." No answer came from the jail. But the footsteps stopped. Right behind him. They spoke through iron bars under a bone-white moon, and Silas learned the truth. He hadn't buried his brother, he buried his own guilt. The footsteps behind him didn't belong to Elias. Silas knew that before he turned. Knew it in the way the air didn't shift, didn't soften. Elias moved like shadow, quiet, fluid, like wind through sagebrush. These steps were heavy. Measured. Leather boots on packed earth. The sheriff's gate. Silas didn't turn. Didn't draw. Just stared at the jailhouse window, his brother's map crumpled in his fist, the ivory-handled revolver burning a hole through his coat. "Evenin', Roan," came the voice, dry as cracked leather. Sheriff Haggard. A man who'd buried more outlaws than he'd baptized children. "Heard you paid your brother a visit." Silas said nothing. "Funny thing," Haggard mused, stepping up beside him, spurs jingling soft. "Man sings like an angel, but the town calls him devil. Calls him coward. Says he ran from the Coyote Pass job. Left his partner to die. He paused. Spat into the dust. Course, we never found the body of the man who supposedly died with him. Just blood. Lots of it. Silas's jaw clenched. He remembered the blood. So much of it. On the rocks. On the wheels of the stagecoach. On his own hands. He didn't run, Silas said, voice low, rough. Haggard chuckled. Not mean. Just tired. Ain't what the witnesses said. Said they saw him mount up and ride south while bullets still flew. Left you bleedin' in the dirt. Silas turned then. Eyes hard. They're lyin', Dot. Ain't supposed to be, Haggard said. It's math. One outlaw's worth more than two. Specially when one of them sings lullabies to rats. He tipped his hat and walked away, spurs whispering against the boardwalk. Silas waited until the sheriff's door clicked shut. Then he stepped to the jailhouse window. Pressed his forehead to the iron bars. Cold bit his skin. Elias, he whispered. Silence. Then, a rustle. A sigh. And finally, the voice, weaker now, but clear. Knew you'd come back. Silas closed his eyes. Why didn't you say something? At Coyote Pass. When I dragged you off, why didn't you tell me it wasn't you? A dry chuckle from the dark. You didn't look, Silas. Not once. Just grabbed the coat. The boots. Like you couldn't wait to be rid of me. That ain't true. Then why'd you leave me at Ma's grave? Elias whispered. 10 years old. You rode off to chase smoke and whiskey. Left me standin' there with a shovel and a promise you never kept. Silas flinched. He remembered. The raw ditch. The too small coffin. Elias, small and shaking, gripping the shovel like it was the only thing holding him upright. I'll be back, Silas had said. Gonna get us money. Get us out of this dust. He'd ridden west that same day. Didn't come back for 3 years. By then, Elias had buried their pa too. Alone. I came back, Silas said. Too late, Elias murmured. Always too late. Moonlight slid through the bars, painting stripes across the floor inside. Silas could just make out Elias's shape now, slumped against the wall, knees drawn up, face shadowed. But his eyes, they caught the light. Hollow. Haunted. What happened at Coyote Pass? Silas asked. Elias was quiet a long time. Then, we were set up. Stagecoach was bait. Posse was waitin' in the rocks. I took a bullet in the leg tryin' to cover you. Saw you go down. Crawled to you. But when I rolled you over, it wasn't you. Just some kid. Wore your coat. Your hat. Even had a gun like yours. He paused. Swallowed hard. I thought you were dead. Tried to drag him off. Got caught. They called me deserter. Coward. Said I left my own blood to die. Silas's throat tightened. I buried him thinkin' it was you. I know, Elias whispered. Heard you singin' Ma's song. Same one you hummed when you thought I was sleepin', back when we still shared a bedroll. Silas pressed his palm to the bars. I'll get you out. Elias didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was barely there. Why? So you can bury me proper this time. No, Silas said, voice breaking. So I can stand beside you. Like I should have done at Coyote Pass. Like I should have done at Ma's grave. Silence stretched between them, thick as gun smoke. Then, Elias began to sing. Soft. Trembling. But steady. Hush now, little rider. Silas didn't move. Didn't speak. Just listened. Let the words wash over him. Let them carve into his bones. Outside, the wind picked up again. Coyotes howled in the distance. Somewhere, a horse whinnied. The desert breathed around them, vast, indifferent, ancient. But in that moment, between iron bars and moonlight, two broken men weren't alone. And for the first time in years, Silas didn't feel the weight of the grave. He felt the weight of his brother's voice. He came to the jail with a gun and a stolen key, not to free his brother, but to silence him forever. Midnight painted Redemption Falls in shades of ash and silver. Silas moved like smoke through the back alleys, his boots whispering over cracked earth and scattered tumbleweed. The stolen key burned in his palm, cold iron shaped by a jailer's greed and a bottle of cheap rye. The rope coiled at his hip. The whiskey sloshed in his gut, dulling the edges but not the purpose. He didn't come to break Elias out. He came to end it. A mercy killing, he told himself. Better a bullet in the dark than slow decay in a cell crawling with rats and regret. Better oblivion than the town's jeers, the judge's gavel, the rope's kiss at dawn. Elias was already half dead, hollow-eyed, voice cracked, spirit worn thin as old saddle leather. Let him go clean. Let him go quiet. Silas reached the jailhouse rear door. No lanterns. No guards. Just the sigh of wind through the eaves and the distant clink of a loose shutter. He slid the key into the lock. Turned it slow. The click echoed like a hammer falling. He stepped inside. The stench hit him first, sweat, mold, piss, and something deeper, the sour tang of despair. Moonlight spilled through the front window, striping the floorboards. Silas's boots creaked as he moved forward, hand resting on the grip of his Colt. His other hand held Elias's ivory-handled revolver, cold, heavy, final. The cell door stood open. Haggard's doing. Or had Elias picked the lock with a nail and sheer stubbornness? Didn't matter now. Silas stepped to the threshold. Elias wasn't lying down. Wasn't curled in the corner. He stood by the barred window, back to the door, gazing out at the desert moon. Still singing. Soft. Steady. Like he'd been waiting. Like he knew. The coyotes sing you lullabies. Silas's finger twitched on the trigger. Turn around, he said. Voice flat. Dead. Elias didn't flinch. Didn't turn. Just kept singing. And the stars will keep you safe tonight. You always were slow on the draw, Silas, Elias murmured, still facing the window. Remember? Pa used to say you'd get yourself killed waitin' for the other man to blink. Silas's breath hitched. He remembered. Their father, standing in the yard, tin cans lined up on the fence. Draw when you mean it, he'd say. Not when you're scared. Silas wasn't scared now. He was hollow. You don't gotta do this, Elias said, voice barely above a whisper. I do, Silas said. You ain't got no life left in you. Just pain. Just ghosts. Elias finally turned. Moonlight caught his face, gaunt, bruised, but calm. Too calm. His eyes met Silas's. No fear. No anger. Just sadness. The kind that settles deep, past tears, past rage. The kind that knows too much. You ain't killin' me, brother, Elias said. You're killin' the boy who waited for you at Ma's grave. The boy who believed you'd come back. Silas's hand trembled. The gun barrel wavered. Outside, a church bell tolled, slow, mournful, wrong. No preacher. No congregation. Just wind catching the rusted clapper, ringing for no one. A boot scraped stone outside the front door. Silas's head snapped toward the sound. Deputy Riggs. Making his rounds. Early. Time bled like sand through clenched fingers. Silas raised the gun. Aimed center chest. Elias didn't move. Didn't beg. Just looked at him. Looked through him. And sang the last line. "And I'll be right here, waitin'." Not the words their mother sang. His own. Added. For Silas. The gun shook harder. Silas's breath came in ragged gasps. Sweat stung his eyes. His finger tightened on the trigger. One squeeze. One sound. One end. But the voice, that damn voice, cracked and crooning, carried the ghost of every promise broken, every mile ridden alone, every grave dug too soon. Silas lowered the gun. The barrel kissed the floorboards with a soft clink. He fell to his knees. And wept. Not quiet tears. Not manly sniffles. Great, heaving sobs that shook his shoulders, that choked his throat, that echoed off the stone walls like the wail of a lost thing finally found. Elias didn't move toward him. Didn't speak. Just watched. And when Silas's sobs quieted to shuddering breaths, Elias walked to him. Slow. Limping. Sat beside him on the filthy floor. Leaned his head against Silas's shoulder. Didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Outside, Deputy Riggs's footsteps faded down the street. The moon climbed higher. Two brothers sat in the dark. One broken by guilt. One broken by silence. And between them, no gun. No grave. Just a song, unfinished. They vanished at dawn, two riders, one slumped, both singing off-key, and left behind only a harmonica, a spent shell, and a town that swore the dead don't stay buried if the living still owe them songs. Dawn came bleeding over the canyon rim, painting Redemption Falls in shades of rust and rose. The jailhouse door hung open, not forced, not broken. Just, unlocked. Swinging slow in the morning breeze like a gate left open for ghosts. No bodies inside. No blood. No sign of struggle. Just a single spent shell on the floor, not fired, just dropped. And on the thin straw cot, still warm to the touch, lay a harmonica. Brass worn smooth by years of breath and thumb. The same one Elias used to play on winter nights when the wind howled through the cabin cracks. The same one Silas had tossed into a creek during a drunken rage, 10 years ago. Sheriff Haggard found it first. Stood in the doorway, hat in hand, staring at the empty cell like it had personally insulted him. He picked up the harmonica. Turned it over. Sniffed it. Then tucked it into his vest pocket without a word. The town stirred slow. Women peered through lace curtains. Men gathered on porches, boots unlaced, coffee steaming in tin cups. Whispers slithered down the street like sidewinders. They rode out together, said the livery boy, eyes wide. Saw myself. Just as the sun kissed the mesa. Silas on his gelding. Elias slumped behind him, holdin' on tight. Both of singin'. Off key. Loud. Liar, spat the barber. Ain't no way Elias could ride. Legs busted from the knee down. Then how'd they vanish? The boy shot back. Horses don't leave tracks in solid rock. They didn't vanish. They rode. Hard. West. Into the teeth of the rising sun. Silas didn't speak. Didn't look back. Just kept the gelding at a steady lope, one hand on the reins, the other braced against Elias's grip around his waist. His brother's breath came shallow against his back. Hot. Ragged. Alive. They didn't stop at noon. Didn't stop at dusk. Rode until the moon rose, silver and silent, and the gelding stumbled on cracked earth. Only then did Silas pull up beneath a skeletal cottonwood, its branches clawing at the stars. He helped Elias down, slow, careful, biting back curses as his brother's leg buckled. Propped him against the trunk. Built a fire with trembling hands. No words. Just the crackle of flame, the sigh of the desert, the distant cry of a lone wolf. Elias pulled the harmonica from his coat, the one Silas had lost all those years ago. He hadn't. Elias had fished it from the creek. Kept it. Polished it. Played it when the world got too quiet. He put it to his lips. And played. Not the lullaby. Not the ballads of lost love or gunfights won. He played the tune their mother used to whistle while kneading bread, simple, sweet, stubbornly hopeful. Silas stared into the fire. Watched the sparks rise like fleeing spirits. He didn't cry. Didn't speak. Just listened. Let the notes stitch the silence between them. Let them mend what bullets and graves and years of dust had torn apart. 3 days later, a posse found the grave near Dead Man's Creek. Not Elias's. Not Silas's. Just a stranger, young, beardless, mouth curled in a grin even the buzzards hadn't erased. Wore a coat too big for him. Boots too fine. And tucked in his stiff fingers, a wanted poster. Silas Roan's face stared up from the parchment, reward amount smudged by rain and blood. The posse leader spat. Damn fool died wearing another man's skin. They didn't rebury him. Left him to the sun and the scavengers. Rode back to town with nothing but dust in their boots and a story too strange to tell straight. Months passed. Snow fell on the high mesas. Melted. Returned. In saloons from Santa Fe to Cheyenne, the tale grew legs. Some said the Roan brothers died in a canyon shootout, guns blazing, singing to the end. Others swore they saw them riding into Mexico, Elias healed, Silas smiling for the first time in 20 years. But the old-timers, the ones who'd known hunger, silence, and the weight of a brother's voice in the dark, they tell it different. They say if you ride alone through the desert at night, when the wind dies and the stars hang low, you might hear it. 2 voices. Cracked. Crooning. Off-key. Riding the breeze like smoke. Singing about coyotes. About stars. About waiting. And forgiveness. Some say it's just the wind through the canyons. Others say it's the land remembering. But the ones who've buried too much, who've left too many behind. They know better. They tip their hats. They whisper the words back. And they ride on.